Good afternoon, James. Thank you very much for joining us today. The topic we're talking about is capital gains and entrepreneurs relief, of which we know there's been some significant changes. James from Beaumont Seymour is here today to give us an overview of what those changes are and what they might mean for you. So welcome, James.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So talk to us. I suppose the best place to start is April 2019, because there were some significant changes to Entrepreneurs Relief. And I wonder if you might give us an overview of what those changes were.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. There are a couple of changes. The first one was that the minimum ownership period changed from 12 months, a year, to 2 years at 24 months.
So the business, you have to have owned a significant part of that business for at least 24 months before you can even qualify.
Correct, yes. And the significant part is at least 5%. That's the number that you have to own to qualify for the relief.
You have to have owned more than 5% for a minimum of 24 months to even look at qualifying for Entrepreneurs Relief.
Yes. So that the 5% was always there. The change was from 1 year to 2 years. So that was the one big change. The other big change is that you have to hold 5%. You have to have 5% of the share capital and also of the voting rights to the company. But they introduced a new test from April 19, which you also had to have 5% of the profits and assets available for distribution on the winding up of a company, or 5% of the sale proceeds of the share capital if it was sold on the day of disposal. Now that probably sounds like a lot of gobbledygook, but it's basically saying you don't have in name 5% of the profit of the shares, but actually in reality you sell your company and you get 50 pence. You've got to get a substantial, at least 5% of the profits.
Okay.
Or the proceeds. It's got to come to you. So put it in another analogy, if you were to sell your house and you owned it with somebody else, you sold it for £200,000 and you got £50 of it, and the other person got 199,950, you wouldn't qualify because it wouldn't be that 5%.
Okay, that makes sense. So they've introduced this ownership period. They've introduced further tests in respect of actually how much benefit you gain.
Yeah.
And what about the reduction of the 10 million down to 1 million? When did that come in? And can you talk to us a bit about that?
Yeah, so that happened on the same day. So previously you could have the first 10 million it's a lifetime gain. So the first 10 million pound that you got from selling your businesses, and it could be multiple businesses or it could all be one, the first 10 million in your entire lifetime would qualify for Entrepreneurs Relief as it was. And that reduced down to £1 million. So if you in the past have sold a business and got Entrepreneurs Relief of £2 million, before the changes you would have had £8 million still to use, but now you don't get Entrepreneurs Relief. You never will, unless they change the rules again. But
and Entrepreneurs Relief is essentially, instead of paying 20% tax as it is now, you pay 10% on the first million, assuming you've held the business for 24 months, you own more than 5% of the shares, and you have done for 24 months, and your gain is significant, more than 5%, essentially.
Yeah. And the one other criteria which I failed to mention which hasn't changed, is that you're a director or an employee of the company.
Okay.
I'm guessing most of your clients are going to fall into all those. And if somebody owns all of their company and is selling the whole lot, and they've worked in the business, there shouldn't be an issue anyway. It's just if you've got that smaller shareholding that you might sort of
Need to take a bit of
NBCL.
advice.
Yes, and obviously this is all generic advice, so
Yeah.
always would recommend double checking with your accountant before you sell. So I'd hate to think somebody didn't get entrepreneurs relief because they didn't dot the I's, cross the T's. So yeah, always take
absolutely. Absolutely. So entrepreneurs relief, actually the name's changed now, hasn't it? It's business asset disposal relief.
Yes, correct.
And that was
so
this year.
Yeah, so they changed all the rules last year, and then they decided to confuse even more by changing the name from 6th of April 2020 to Business Asset Disposal Relief.
And I think we've joked previously that bad relief is a much better name for it now.
Yes. So
fabulous. Yeah. So entrepreneurs relief, big changes have happened, are in effect, and there is nothing we can do about it.
Correct.
I think probably where a lot of our clients, particularly, we've been asked the question, is what happens over and above that million. So any gain over and above that million. Could you talk us through what the current rules are and what's kind of anticipated or being talked about in the press at the moment?
Yeah. So at the moment, any sale of shares that don't qualify for entrepreneurs relief are all taxed at 20%. That's the safest, the easiest way to explain it. There is a slight nuance to that, in that if you've got somebody who is a basic rate taxpayer earning less than £50,000 in the current year, then what's unused of their income tax band would get a tax rate of 10% of capital. But I'm guessing a lot of your clients will have income in excess of the 50,000. So the majority of their gain will be at 20%.
Okay.
So work on that basis, and you're not going to be far wrong. You might get a little bit of saving, but it's not going to be substantial.
Rather that way than the other way.
Yeah.
So what's kind of tipped to happen? Because I know we've talked previously about certain taxes being ring fenced, as in there's not going to be a hike. Capital gains is not one of those, and there's a lot going on in the press at the moment to surmise what may or may not happen there. Can you talk us through what the guesstimates are?
Yeah. So in terms of the tax, what the government promised was that income tax, corporation tax, VAT wouldn't go up. Capital gains tax was never mentioned in that. So by default, there is a strong chance that if they are looking to raise additional revenue, which given the recent pandemic and the cost of the economy, it's quite possible that they will be looking at in the spring, because the November budget has been cancelled. So in the spring, they might be looking at increasing taxes and capital gains tax, or a complete reform of capital gains tax. It is never known for any certainty as to what they will do. A few years ago, capital gains tax used to be at the same rates as income tax, like at 40%, and that got changed. So it's quite possible that they might change it back, because you find with tax policy, something that existed 20 years ago might just come back wrapped up in a nice little different disguise, as with a lot of the same rules as what happened, because entrepreneurs relief is almost the same as retirement relief that existed, I think it was 20 or so years ago, which they got rid of and then they replaced. So it's never as anything brand new. It's always, and it's always tweaking around the edges. So
okay, but that would be a significant hike if they were to reform capital gains to bring it in line with income tax. For people looking now to sell, anything over $1 million could face up to 40%.
Yes,
tax.
and there's no guarantee that they'd keep the business asset disposal relief at all. Having just changed it, it would seem strange to then get rid of it a year later or 2 years later, but there's no guarantees. Obviously, if the rates do go up, it makes the business asset disposal relief that much more valuable to get a rate of 10% than a rate of 40% or whatever the rate is. But
so what's the accounting press saying at the moment in terms of best estimates on what may or may not happen?
it is just, yeah, there's talk that it probably will increase, but we just don't know. To be honest, it's needing your crystal ball as to what they're going to do and when they do it. And in the past, we've seen changes to capital gains tax come in, and they have taken effect from the day that the Chancellor has announced them. So sometimes we've had, like, income tax. When they change the rate of income tax, it historically has always been from the start of the new tax year. With capital gains, because it's at a point in time, they can change it. So any sales that happen as or after today are taxed at this rate. Anything before today were at an old rate, and that can go in your favour or against depending on when you sell.
I suspect the year 2020 is not going to be known for working in your favour, and therefore, just perhaps if you were to guess which way it's going to go, a hike of 20% would not be far wrong from possible.
It's possible that there is going to be, and you don't know when it will come on the horizon either, but it's unlikely they're going to be given more tax saving. That's my gut feel. But
I would second your gut feel, given what's happening with the global economy and the cost of the pandemic to date. So, just as a summary, Entrepreneurs Relief changed in April 2019 to bring some additional hoops to jump through. Essentially, you have to have held ownership of the business and be a director and have more than 5% shares in the business for more than 24 months. And your gain has to be more than 5% of the value of the overall sale. And it's no longer called Entrepreneurs Relief, and we're talking about bad relief. And at the moment, what Entrepreneurs Relief qualifies for you for, if you are eligible, is the first £1 million of your gain is only taxed at 10%. For argument's sake, the majority of the population will be taxed at 20% for anything over £1 million, but the accounting press is hedging their bets on whether that's going to change in spring 2021. Would you say that is an accurate summary?
Yes, yeah, that sums it up quite nicely. The last bit is the only bit I can't guarantee, but it's the rest of it you've spot on.
I think if you could guarantee it, it would be a problem, because nobody really wants that.
Well, it's a problem. In one way, it's a problem. In another way, people, if you knew for certain, people will be looking to sell their business.
Absolutely.
So, as I always say to all of my clients, tax is an important factor, because you obviously don't want to pay more tax than you need to, but you have to do what's right for you. So if it's you're looking to retire, then, and you get an offer today, or you think it's going to be, then it might be better to take that than wait and see a different tax rate.
Yeah. So there's a strategic level of thinking that needs to come in, and it bears thinking about the changes that have happened, the impact of this year on the economy, and changes that are anticipated in spring next year, possibly as part of your succession planning, if that's something that you are doing imminently.
Yeah.
So I'm really grateful for your time on that, and I think I would just say to anybody to reiterate what you said. If you are having any of these thoughts or planning now, please do feel free to come and speak to either James or myself, or both of us, or your own accountant, just to make sure that your succession planning is as strategic as it can possibly be. So thank you very much.